Men have been cheating pretty consistently throughout time, except recently they're having significantly less sexual encounters, right? So their numbers are actually going down. The number was, I think, 23% of men on average have cheated historically, right? But in 2011, women had gotten up to 19%. And so they were closing the gender gap.
Warning. This podcast is for entertainment only and not intended for medical purposes.
Enter the Freud.
You know?
Yeah.
Closing. Well, clearly, but remember, that was like 13 years ago, right? So at this point, they have way surpassed with the addition of introducing poly as an accepted lifestyle. But in case you haven't seen young women, a lot of them are not doing very well metabolically, and so their options are pretty low, dude. How else am I supposed to say it, right? What am I saying? What did I say? Dude.
They're not doing very well metabolically. That's just such a super abstract, indirect way of saying they're fat.
they're super fat, and so there was a period where people would talk about thick girls. Like, attractiveness is attractiveness, and your mate selection is going to be what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think the red pill crew has to say about this?
Dude, if a woman is trying to do that poly thing on you, you gotta turn the tables on her and put her in her place.
Yeah, by doing what? What do you do to?
You very simply don't chase.
That's right.
Don't let her know that you're into her.
Yep.
Just treat her as a booty call, and occasionally, when she wants a booty call, don't be available. And so they would say you want to flip, and honestly, as I'm starting to talk it, I'm kind of yeah, I think this is true. I'm like,
what?
Shit. I'm like, oh shit, they're right. You want to if she's, because I just think that the red pill says this, and I think it's true, is there's this power dynamic competition, who's better, who's worse thing that can exist in the market. And if this chick cooks up with you and is like, all right, but I'm poly and I'll just come get a booty call from you whenever I want, what you have to do, here's what you can't do, is no, come on, I want something more serious. You can't do that.
Why not?
And what you have to,
why can't you do that?
Because it's this power play. It's who's got a leg up here. And the person that shows less interest has a leg up, and they have the power. So then now you have to show less interest than she's showing, because otherwise you're her bitch. And if you show more interest and you're always available for the booty call whenever she wants, and you kind of text her more than she texts you, then you're going to stay in the bitch role, and she's never going to really be interested in you.
Wow. This really just seems like an arms race to inevitably just no one. If everyone's trying to be more and more distant, then it's literally just somehow randomly hookups happen out of complete desperation, and then in the end you just you have to ghost them at some if you keep going, the standard will very soon be, oh, okay, yeah, I really like this chick, so for sure I have to ghost her for 2 weeks. Right? In the meantime, this other guy was telling me, right? He's in LA in the dating scene, and he was this young cat, and he's oh, dude, chicks show up and they're just they, he will have seen that they were earlier at a party with a whole bunch of other dudes, but then she'll show up at his door all wasted, hey, it's 2 a.m. and he's I gotta fucking work tomorrow. What are you doing? She's oh my God, I'm here. And she just expects him to go along with it, even though clearly she was out with a whole bunch of other dudes. for whatever reason, none of them seemed to be as good of an option. So then she's like, oh, let's pick this one, right?
Right.
I'll just go to his house and then be like, hey, you know, hey, I'm freaking wasted, let me in. And I bet you that works a lot for women, right?
Well, yeah, that's the thing is if you're a young woman, you kind of can do that. And so if you're a guy, basically if you're a guy and you're wanting more of a partnership kind of thing, women who do this, you just have to use them like they're using you, and you can't, they're not a good option for the partnership thing. But there are good women out there who will do the partnership thing, but it's not these ladies.
I would love if you could distinguish between which ones are the ones, right? Like, I think women who openly just telegraph all they're about is money and material gains.
Yes, those are not the ones you want for partnerships.
Yeah, because you like, if that's really all your worldview is based on, your morality is going to bend and tilt towards acquisition of things, and you would definitely be like, oh, well, I'm going to go with this guy because he's driving a Bentley. I'm going to go...
And there's always going to be a guy with a nicer car or blah, blah, blah. So they're always going to be looking for the next best thing.
Yeah, that is a pretty good identifier of someone who wouldn't be good for a relationship. But that's what I can't
Then you just got to play this arms race game with those chicks.
But, like... I guess that could be kind of cool, right? If you just embrace, like, oh, okay, this is how the game is played, and
it's apples and oranges. It's like that's a booty call arms race game that you can play as much or as little as you want.
Yeah.
And then a different thing is like searching for a partner, and let's not confuse those two things.
I love it. Let's not confuse those, but also we should examine them as like, well, they're both terrific for certain parts of your development, right?
Yeah, totally.
And to sit there and just be like, oh, the end game is always to keep women wanting. That's the only way to have passion in your life, is to never let them have a stable footing, right? You always have to be somewhat mysteriously, never texting at the same time, like
totally.
Never be consistent. Those kinds of crazy ass rules that people will adopt out of desperation, not realizing like, oh no, there's just a couple games being played, right?
Yeah.
You have like the straight booty call, then you have like, friends with benefits, and then you have these longer term like dreams of we're gonna make a family together, right?
Yep.
Like people in our country still want to have families. Like, dude.
Yes, absolutely.
How are you supposed to be going around talking smack about I'm poly, and you want to have a family? Like, it just clearly is. These are just like ways to describe that I'm in a developmental phase where I'm trying to experiment with sex, right?
Yeah, and they're just experimenting and confused and lost, and they're fumbling around trying to figure it out. And I don't blame them. Like, who isn't fumbling around trying to figure it out?
What do you mean? Like in a week or so, I'll be 49, right? And then one day later, so will you.
Yeah.
And aren't we supposed to have this figured out by now? Like,
no, because the culture, society has changed so fucking much in the past handful of decades that we're just in a whole societal transition phase.